Elisha, the man of God. His flesh became again like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean of his leprosy. Naaman returned with his whole returned to the man of God. On his arrival, he stood before Elisha and said, "Now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Please accept a gift from your servant." Elisha replied, "As the Lord lives whom I serve, I will not take it." And despite Naaman's urging, he still refused. Naaman said, "If you will not accept, please let me, your servant, have 2 mule loads of earth, for I will no longer offer holocaust or sacrifice to any other god except to the Lord." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. The Lord has revealed to the nations His saving power. The Lord has revealed to the nations His saving power. Sing to the Lord a new song, for He has done wondrous deeds. His right hand has won victory for Him, His holy arm. The Lord has revealed to the nations His saving power. The Lord has made His salvation known in the sight of the nations. He has revealed His justice. He has remembered His kindness and His faithfulness toward the house of Israel. The Lord has revealed to the nations His saving power. All the ends of the earth have seen the salvation by our God. Sing joyfully to the Lord, all you lands. Break into song, sing praise. The Lord has revealed to the nations His saving power. Ora lettura del secondo epistolo de San Pablo e Timoteo. Quiero decir, hermano, recuerda siempre que Jesucristo, descendiente de David, resucitó de entre los muertos, conforme al evangelio que yo predico. Por este evangelio sufro hasta llevar cadenas como un luchador, pero la palabra de Dios no está encandida nada. Por eso lo sobrellevo todo por amor a los elegidos, para que ellos también alcancen en Cristo Jesús la salvación y con ella la gloria eterna. Es verdad lo que decimos: si morimos con Él, viviremos con Él. Si nos mantenemos firmes, reinaremos con Él. Si lo negamos, Él también nos negará. Si le somos infieles, Él permanece fiel, porque no puede
according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
As Jesus continued his journey to Jerusalem, he traveled through Samaria and Galilee. As he was entering a village, 10 lepers met him. They stood at a distance from him and raised their voices and saying, "My Jesus, Master, have pity on us." And when he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priests." And as they were going, they were cleansed. And one of them, realizing that he had been healed, returned, glorifying God in a loud voice. And he fell at the feet of Jesus and thanked him. He was a Samaritan. Jesus said in reply, "10 were cleansed, were they not? Where are the other 9? Has not but this foreigner returned to give thanks to God?" Then he said to them, "Stand and go. Your faith has saved you." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Jesus Christ.
Please be seated, since our sister. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Life throws curveballs at you. And we had 3 curveballs this week, as I mentioned earlier. Storm in Florida that devastated Florida, South Carolina, Georgia. And I have some clergy friends in Florida, and one of them may have lost his church. And then, yesterday afternoon, the apartment buildings that my wife and I own out in Palm Desert, we had a serious fire that did a lot of damage, displacing our tenants. People are homeless, no fault of their own, fault of a faulty air conditioner. And then when we got home, I learned that 2 of Palm Springs' finest had been gunned down by a gang member. Guy who was a real bad dude. He had a long police record. And we're all tempted to say that he's garbage. But believe it or not, he's still a person in God's eyes. He's still created in God's image. And we can't allow ourselves to stoop as low as he is, and call names, and blame and forgive and call for retribution. That's not Christian. And where does that leave us this morning? Well, I have quite a homily prepared on these lessons this morning about healing, about outcasts, about God's attitude toward outsiders and inclusivity, about our relationship with God, and about gratitude, and how this all applies. And this morning I'm going to concentrate on how this all applies. Because our society tends to want to scapegoat people. We hear about scapegoating minorities. We hear about scapegoating immigrants. But believe it or not, and as someone who's a progressive, I find this very difficult to say, but it looks like police officers are being scapegoated as well. And the scapegoating of police officers is just as evil, just as wrong as scapegoating because somebody is black, because somebody is Hispanic, because there's somebody's immigrant, because someone is a woman. It's all bad to scapegoat people. And scapegoating ultimately leads to tragedy. And I read in the news that this guy wanted to kill police officers. He told his father, "I'm going to go and do that." He scapegoated these police officers, and police officers have been scapegoated all over this country. Granted, there are some bad police officers, there are some lousy police officers, and that many of them shouldn't be there, and a lot of them should be going to jail, but not 100% of them. There are some good professional police officers, And the two officers that were gunned down yesterday were simply out there doing their job in a very professional manner, and they got shot. And this leads to the question of theodicy. Bad things happening to good people. God acting in ways that we don't expect. And because God is ultimately a mystery. God came in the form of a flesh and a human being. And how that happened or why that happened, all of that's a mystery. And God himself or herself is a mystery. And we don't know why God does a lot of this stuff. In the application of today's readings, we don't know why God afflicted Naaman with leprosy. And we don't know why God afflicted the 10 people with leprosy. But we do know that Naaman, if you read the rest of the story in 2 Kings chapter 5, Naaman was a foreigner. Naaman was an outcast. Yet Elisha, a prophet of God, healed him. And he was thankful for that. He tried his best to thank Elisha. And Elisha said, "Oh, I'm just doing my job." He says, "Well, can I have a couple meals?" Sure. Again, Elisha's just doing his job. Just like these police officers are just doing their jobs. And then we have Jesus with these 10 lepers. And 9 of them were Jews. And one of them was a Samaritan. To give you a little bit of background. In Jewish history, the Samaritans and the Jews kind of went their own way in about the 8th century, at the time of what they call the Assyrian deportation in the years 700s and 800s BC. And the Samaritans have a few differences with the Jews. You could call them fundamentalists. They only accept the first 5 books of the Bible rather than the rest of the Hebrew Bible. And they worship at Mount Gerizim, and they say, well, that was the original place. And they don't, and they have a much stricter observance of a lot of the dietary laws that the Jews have. And as a result, they don't normally have business dealings with one another. And social, and they usually are on speaking terms. It's kind of like how Catholics and Protestants kind of went off in their own worlds until the ecumenical movement took off. And in both cases, we have a story of healing of leprosy, a healing of an outcast. And this morning, the community of Palm Springs is dealing with healing. That is the number one task that has to happen. Healing the relationships between the police and the community. Healing the relationships within the police department. It's all about healing. It's not about getting after somebody or getting even, putting this guy to death. That's not what we are as Christians. And when I look at this guy's history, he was treated as an outcast. He had numerous bad things happen in his life. He had just gotten out of state prison in 2013. And as soon as he got out, he had a drunk driving arrest. And that points up our system, that our justice system, which is focused on punishment rather than on healing, and this is the result. What if, when this guy was in prison, there was an emphasis on healing him rather than punishing him? Would he have done this bad stuff when he got out? It just sickens me. But just like God afflicts some people with leprosy, cancer, or other diseases, God does that for a reason. Believe it or not, there can be growth and virtue out of suffering. And maybe that's why we have theodicy. Maybe these lepers were outcasts. Maybe their leprosy allows them to enter into a deeper relationship with God. Just as very often when people are dying of various diseases, some of them turn their life around and they start looking to God rather than all the material comforts of this life. And in the case of our community here, this incident, as bad as it was, is perhaps a wake-up call to the kind of healing that should be our response to tragedies, to bad stuff. Today's lessons are also about gratitude, to be thankful for who and what we are. Because a lot of us are thankful that we're not living in Florida, that we're living in Palm Springs, and we don't have that hurricane. We're thankful that we're still alive. We're thankful that we can still go to our homes tonight, where some people can't. There's so much for which we have to be thankful that we aren't thankful enough for it. And we tend to concentrate on the things that are going wrong in our lives. The guy who shot the police officers, he was taken into custody without incident, minor injuries. He can be thankful that those police officers handled that situation in a professional manner, that he still has his life. In the case of the people in southeastern Florida, they can be thankful for the first responders who were in there to take care of them. They can thank God that they survived it. Just like the lepers were thankful for being healed. Naaman in the Old Testament reading, and one of the 10 lepers in the New Testament reading. It's just so interesting that the leper who was the most thankful was the outcast. And we tend to put down outcasts, but many times outcasts have a message for us, just like this leper. And in the case of our displaced tenants, they can be thankful that they still have their life. They don't have a home right now, but they can be thankful for the Red Cross. People came out and cared and looked to heal the situation. If there's anything that our society needs more of now, it's healing. The political campaign we're looking at is reached new lows on both sides. And we don't see healing there. We see people striving to win. And there's really altogether too much of that. Too much emphasis on I win, you lose. And when we look at the various public policies for health care, for caring for the least among us, it's always us versus them. It's never a realization we have a bad situation. Let's try and heal that situation. Let's care for the human beings involved. Just like the Red Cross cared for our tenants, or those professional police officers even cared for one who shot one of their own, killed one of their own, two of their own. And just like the people in Florida who were cared for by first responders, and they are thankful to God to escape with their lives. They're going into a situation where there's going to be lots of healing. And there's going to be lots of healing in Palm Springs. And there's some healing going to go on out at Abronia Trail. Folks, these lessons today are about healing waters, about going to the river of God's mercy and grace and immersing ourselves in God's love and realizing that if all the bad things around us are not all that bad, when God is there for us, when we have Jesus to whom to turn, who in his whole life gave us an example of healing that he did out of the goodness of his heart, not just because he was God and he wanted to show off, but because he loved these people. He wanted to be a physical demonstration of the healing power of God. Jesus being perfect humanity and perfect God, and he was demonstrating that perfection to us by healing. He was setting an example. That's what we need to do for each other. To follow what Jesus did. And to turn to Jesus in prayer and say, Jesus, be with me. Help me to be a healer. Amen. Lamante says, let us stand for the truth.